Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
What do the death of a famous historian, migrating coconuts, and obnoxious French people have in common? We're going to ask that question and more on today's episode of Systematic Geekology. We are the Priest of the Geeks as part of our drive-in series. If you haven't figured it out by now, we're covering Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And I say we, because it's not just me, Christian Ashley. I am joined today by Matthew Winter. How's it going, Matthew?
Good. Great day so far.
Excellent. And of course, you know him. You might love him. I mean, if you really want to stretch the definition of the word love. John Erdely. How's it going, John?
You love and tolerate me. You really do. Going all right today, Christian. It's good to be here.
I'm glad to have, we were compiling like the list of hosts to be like part of this era. I was like, yes, I get Matthew and John. Like, yeah, let's just do this and have fun. So, gentlemen, we have just watched the 1970s film, which is shocking to me because I always thought it was an 80s film for some
Half
reason.
A century old now.
Yeah. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. What is going to be our first reaction to seeing this film in the drive-in?
What did I just see?
Fair.
Well, because that was their first feature length too.
That sounds right.
And especially us over here across the pond, if we were to go in and see that, no frame of reference. What the heck did I just watch?
John?
I would probably be thinking, this looks like a sketch comedy just rolled into a film.
Yeah. This was also my introduction to Monty Python. And I think my initial reaction would have been, I kind of need to watch that again because I know I missed a lot.
Yeah, there's so much. You need to watch it again to really, yeah.
Yeah, I was watching it yesterday again for the first time in a while. It's like, oh, how did I not see that before? All these many different gags they have. It's like, yeah, it's such an amazing film. I love this so much. But gentlemen, why did we pick this specific movie?
Because we
out of all the choices I gave them, good people, I gave them plenty of other films that we could do. We could have done the Omega Man with the what happens after the end and struggling with our humanity. We could have done Silent Running with dealing with environmentalism and how the world looks at that and the struggle of deforestation and ecological disaster. We could have done Network showing how we relate to the things in media. But no, out of all those choices, we chose, and I stress we, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Holy Grail.
This movie. Yes, the Holy Grail.
We picked it, I think, because not only can we relate to it, it's a little nonsensical humor, something we sorely need in these dark times.
Okay. Matthew?
I think for me on the list, it was the one I was most familiar with.
Yeah. I sent out a huge list of about 10 to 15 films from the decade just to see what would people want to do? And I figured this would be one that we'd all seen given our age range and given our geeky loves. This is probably something we saw young. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll throw it in there. And it turns out, yes, we'd all seen it and we wanted to watch it again. So, Gentlemen, how were you introduced to the film?
You mean the first time we watched it?
Yes.
I want to say probably in high school. I want to say that was something that I watched with my buddies when it was still, meme culture kind of before meme culture.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely part of that. I was never part of this group, but back in the day, when the earlier editions of D&D were around, people would get angry if you kept quoting the movie or you kept going around it to the point where, they may have liked the movie at one point in time, but they got kind of sour on it because people just wouldn't shut up about it. Yeah, so early meme culture, I kind of get it. Matthew, what about you?
Yeah, so I was in high school in choir, and there was this kid named Joe, and he incessantly quoted two movies. This one and Men in Tights. Neither one had I seen. So I had no idea what was going on.
Out of context.
Completely out of context. So it wasn't until much later that I got around to seeing Holy Grail. But yeah, that was my first exposure, is the memes.
Okay. Yeah, I watched this also in high school. My dad introduced me to it, and I think my sister and I watched it together. And later on, we'd watched it with our other siblings. And I was just like, what is this film? What am I watching? I don't understand, yet I'm laughing at the same time. It's like the comedic timing of this film just works. I mean, not every joke lands to me, but for the most part, it's hard to find a better movie to just like make you. Just yesterday, when I was rewatching it, I was giggling in glee at some of the things that were happening.
I just want to hear that giggle. Can you do a reenactment?
It has to be in the moment. I'm not an actor. I don't perform on command.
Boo.
I'm not your dancing monkey, boy. Yeah. So anything else you want to add to that?
I want to say the quotes live on in infamy. Like, time, like it just surpasses all time. Like you could quote it anytime during the day, and usually there's going to be somebody around that's going to catch the reference.
Before we were recording, listeners, we were quoting the movie to each other multiple times over, and John essentially was just saying, "Get on with it," because we do actually need to record this episode. You can't see it right now because this is not going to be on YouTube, but Matthew does have that as his little title underneath his name. So can we explain what the heck this film is for that one person out there in the audience who has never watched this movie? May God have mercy on their souls.
I would say it's a nonsensical fantasy sketch comedy that kind of goes back and forth between modern day and historical King Arthur era that follows King Arthur's quest for the Holy Grail. And that is the plot in a nutshell, but it involves a lot of sketch comedy things. My descriptions.
Go ahead.
No, he's just saying it's bad descriptions. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, I was going to say the first time I watched it, I actually really struggled with it because there is really not a plot, and I didn't know what to expect or what I was going to be watching. So then when it is just a string of vaguely connected sketches,
yes, I mean, essentially at the end of the day, Arthur is become king of Camelot, and he's trying to assemble knights for his round table. And God then appears before him in the special Monty Python drawing that can only be done in the way they can do it. Tells him to stop apologizing for everything. Don't even quote those miserable psalms. I've got a mission for you, Arthur. That's to find a Holy Grail. And Arthur, the entire film, is acting as if he's in a high fantasy, while the actual world around him is Monty Python sketches, where he's forced to deal with the absurd and the inane. And every time he tries to get things back on track, fails utterly because he's just in the wrong film to play out what he wants to do. So it's all over the place.
Said.
Yeah, it's a wonderful film. It makes a lot more sense when you've watched it more than once. I highly recommend doing. You're still going to miss things, but yeah, like I could watch this film over and over again.
Yep.
And one of the things about it would be its running gags. So that when you watch it multiple times over, you see, oh, that's a reference to this. Oh, that's a reference to that. They did that earlier in the movie. So what would be your favorite running gags from this movie?
Coconuts as a sound of horses running. It's so funny every time.
Yeah. And you know why that exists? Because they couldn't afford horses.
Exactly. It's such a creative and funny way to show them, hey, we're poor, but we have a sense of humor about it, and we are also accomplishing something that sounds similar to horse galloping. It's just so funny. Love them.
And it's also kind of a way of like the Foley work. You would probably use something similar to a coconut to achieve that sound anyways. So they're just putting it physically on screen for you to see what someone else behind the scenes would have done for the horses galloping. Were they actually there? Matthew, what about you?
I just, for Monty Python in general, because they do it in the show too. I just love the animated sequences that string everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're so, I mean, in the style of this, it's so well done, you know, just because you look at it and kind of go, well, because they're mirroring medieval art to a certain extent. And then showcasing all these things, there'd be these inane things you would see. You would see knights running away from giant rabbits or killer rabbits. You would see them in very sexually explicit things multiple times over. And there's nothing too bad in this film, but like when you're looking at what monks would doodle in the margins for, you know, whatever they were dictating or writing down, you'd see stuff like that. So it's one of those things you can appreciate a lot more if you know your history, which I can't remember which one of the Pythons was big into, is actually an Arthurian historian who kind of brought this all together. But yeah, I agree. Those animated sequences are spectacular. But I mean, for me, it's a smaller one. And it's whenever there's a moment where a cat is just being beaten up or something like that. You just see a guy like whacking one against, and there's not actually a cat in the film, but like the sound effects are there against a stick or something. You hear "Meow, meow." or just people in the background doing inane things like just they're stabbing the earth. And that's all they're doing in the background. They're not cultivating anything. There's a random guy they pass by who is like beating a creek with a stick. And that's it serves no purpose except to be inane.
Yeah.
But it matches this film so very well. I gotta say as well, like, because this is a very meta film. Another one of my favorite running gags are referring back to specific scenes. Like, this is the man from scene 24.
Yeah.
It just tickles me. This movie, it gets me, and like I said, I could watch this over and over again. You guys have any other running gags you want to add to this?
I mean, there's so many like favorite quotations that we only have so much time to go over them.
Right.
But some of my favorite ones are like the "Bring Out Your Dead," and it's like a historical reference to the Black Plague, but it's done in such a ridiculous way. Where he's trying to get rid of somebody, and he's like, "I'm not dead yet. Can you take him, please?"
Yeah.
One more I happen to think of. Every single time Arthur goes down to pray and kneels, something interrupts him. He gets hit by something, or so a new character comes in the scene or something, and it's just like he's trying to be pious. He's trying to follow the actual plot of the film, and yet the world won't allow him.
That's kind of what makes the film, though.
Yeah.
That's too real for me. I'm just trying to follow the plot, and life won't let me.
Exactly. Absurd stuff keeps happening to me.
Like, Lord, please, I'm trying to do this in your name, and hit
look.
by something.
Mr. Robin Fun kills me. He's like trying to walk along.
So we talked about some of our favorite running gags.
Yep.
What about our favorite scenes and or moments from this film?
Oh man,
the Black Knight fight for sure.
The meme.
Go for it, John. Explain it.
Where the Black Knight challenges him to a fight and he loses all of his limbs and he's always just like, it's just a flesh wound, and continues to fight. It's so just classic, and I quote it like all the time. One of my favorite quotes.
Well, you know where that kind of originates from, right? It's I want to say it was Terry Gilliam. I can never remember how to say his last name right. A story he had heard back in the day from Greek history of, when they used to have their, wrestling matches. There was one guy who just wouldn't give up and died in the midst of the wrestling match and was awarded the win for what he did there. And his teacher was always like, no, this is about perseverance and never giving up. And Terry's just like, no, it's about knowing when to give up. And then you have the Black Knight here just get massacred. Just like no limb gets lopped off that easily, but it's for the purposes of being funny. It's like a simple sword strike just knocks him off. And yet he doesn't give up, calling Arthur a pansy for not finishing the fight.
Yes.
Funny.
Come back here. I will bite your ankles.
He lost all his limbs.
And this is where we get things like it's just a flesh wound, from the idea of the insanity of like your arm's off. It's like it's just a flesh wound. And the idea of someone ever saying that,
put me in, coach.
It's just insane. But yet, within the inanity of the film's world that has been created here, it makes perfect sense for this wacko, this loony, as he were, to say the things that he says, to act the way that he does.
In the realm of the ridiculous, it is plausible.
Yeah. Matthew, what about you?
I was thinking about the are they knights?
The Knights of Knee?
Or yes.
The Knights of Knee.
Yes.
Have at it. Explain them.
How do we explain?
How do you explain anything in this film? Just make it up like they did.
Yeah. or the it gag,
Yes.
We require a shrubbery.
So it's Arthur and Bedivere, and they're trying to gain passage to this forest, and that's actually would be in any other film a creepy scene of like the fog and like people rushing past and wondering what's going on here, until you get to the climax of it, and it's the knights will say knee, and they just say knee all over and over again. It's like being physically imposing, but they're saying this inherently funny word just like over and over again. Like it takes away from their menace, but at the same time just makes them ridiculous, so you're laughing. And they're acting like they're this big bad group that Arthur just needs to work with. So him still taking things seriously agrees to give them a shrubbery, which I don't think is a thing at this point in history. But you know what? I'm not a horticulturalist or a
Why are you
botanist,
judging the foliage?
I will judge the foliage all I want. Which, if it's not a thing, it makes it even funnier, because there's someone out there, Roger the Shrubber, who happens to be a member of a profession that shouldn't exist around here.
Trimming the verge.
And then they bring the shrubbery back, and it's this really beautiful arrangement in the middle of a forest that has no place being there. There's no house or anything.
Perfectly landscaped. There's a little fence.
And then they demand another one
on top of that one.
Oh my gosh. And the whole thing too is like, they're beaten because Sir Robin the Brave comes and just starts continually saying
Sir
the word
Robin the Brave.
He bravely ran away into this problem where
who bravely ran away.
keep saying it, which, by the way, if you're paying attention to the film, the word "it" is used in the original first scene, and they don't react to it, which in its own way makes it even funnier to me. And that suddenly they've decided we can't hear the word "it."
Get it?
But you just said it. No.
I said it again. It's so stupid. And yet at the same time, I am giggling like I was back when I was like 16, 17 when I first saw this movie.
Like a
It
schoolgirl?
just brings, yeah, pretty much. Just bring to a happier times. Yeah.
Well,
great
yeah. I mean, words are my thing. So that's definitely one of the highlights for me. And then, of course, the credits.
Oh, the crazy credits.
The opening credits.
The opening, yeah.
Some of the funniest things in the world because you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
Apologize for the fault in the subtitles.
It's what you're supposed to do for motion pictures. You just show, hey, this guy did this. Here's our best boy, our grip, whatever. But then suddenly in the subtitles are in faux Swedish, Norwegian, or whatever.
It's English, but they put the little lines through the O's so that it looks Scandinavian. Yeah.
It's like an advertisement to go to one of the Scandinavian nations, and then it talks about mooses. How the guy who wrote it, his sister was once bitten by a moose. And it has nothing to do with anything. It's still amazing. And then it gets into another running gag of the guys, an announcement made by the people who are making the announcements now of
the guy who made the subtitles got sacked.
Then it comes back again, plays forward, and the people responsible for the people who were sacking the guy have been sacked too, and they've also been sacked. It just gets to the point where everyone gets fired, and they just do this very trippy sequence. For your epileptics out there, probably shouldn't be watching that, as it's all about llamas now.
I feel bad for anyone who hasn't seen this film trying to listen to this podcast. They're just like, what?
This is our descent into madness.
Off the rails.
We looked at the abyss, and the abyss stared right back.
And it ran.
And it was 400 trained mountain llamas. And it's also this like faux Mexican or Spanish music accompanying it too.
Yeah.
It's like it's the film about King Arthur. Which of course just makes the joke even funnier.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I agree. Great choices. For me though, the one scene where I was dying laughing, and I do it every single time, is Lancelot's charge against the swamp castle, thinking he's going to be rescuing a fair maiden. Only it's Herbert with a very effeminate voice who just wants to sing and doesn't want to get married for the woman's huge tracts of land. And he just goes on a rampage. It's the build-up too. It's like Herbert has sent out the message. Lancelot has read it. Lancelot's servant may or may not be dying. It's only mostly dead. And you see the two guards just watching out, and they see this one guy charging at him. The scene replays 5 times, and with the same amount of progress. And then suddenly he just goes up, kills one guard out of the 2, rushes forward, leaving the other guard alive, who just goes, "Hey."
That wasn't nice.
But then he runs through the castle, and he's literally just killing everybody.
Indiscriminately slaughtering everyone.
Not just the men, but
he even takes time.
Children too.
Yeah.
This is the Anakin Skywalker moment, yes. And then there's also this is one of those things I realized earlier. I don't think I'd ever paid attention to. Like as he's massacring people, he takes the time and he attacks a torch. He just slices at it with his sword as if it's a person, and then moves on like he didn't just hit an inanimate object. He's just in a berserker rage. Then he gets up to find the fair maiden, only to find Herbert there, and and the kid's dad is like, "Well, I can understand why you thought he was a girl."
Well, if you played an RPG, you know that inanimate objects have HP health bars too.
No,
like
one was a little before his time.
No. I was thinking about Herbert and how that probably wouldn't fly today.
Yeah, I could see why people would get up in arms, because it's the whole thing too. Because like one of the people that Lancelot almost kills is the father of the bride. Who then has to be murdered by one of the king's guard in full view of everyone, who goes, "He's going to make it." Oh no, he's dead. No one complains about the assassination that just happened in front of them. Oh man, I could rewatch that clip of that sketch alone on repeat.
We need to watch this together.
Oh my god, have a special Discord event or something where we just
like a
watching
Mystery
commentate
Science Theater episode.
I approve. I approve of this idea.
I have a good one every now and then.
Yeah, that's why we keep you around. Not just for another body. Sometimes that brain, it works.
I'm always a sacrifice, if nothing else.
Oh yeah. Any other scenes that kind of spring to mind? I've got one more.
I really like the debating government with the common folk. Where
that
they,
was my civic. Go ahead. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Especially with the sword distribution is a means of claiming a ruler. It's so funny.
That was my civics teacher in high school's favorite scene.
Yeah.
It was just like, if you knew this guy, you know, of course that's your favorite scene, you giant nerd. And it's just a discussion of something, an anarcho-syndicalist commune versus, you know, a monarchy. Which there are some things in European history that were kind of modeled on that, not to the point where we would call it that, but where people would even elect their leaders and stuff like that. But it's just that it's happening, and Arthur just gets so upset because this guy is not getting in line with the fact that
I'm your king.
Divine providence from the Lady of the Lake has made him king. Why do these yokels not understand that? All right, one more, and then we'll move on. The Frenchman. Both of the scenes they're in, from the beginning, it's like, I told him we have a grail. And it turns out that they actually do, because they're in the castle where the Holy Grail is. they just, the insults they throw, there's nothing, like pretty much nothing explicit in there. Nothing, there's no cursing or anything. It's all different words just packaged together. You son of a silly person. Like, your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. It just keeps pissing off the knight so much that when they try to besiege the castle, fail, get attacked by animals, and it just keeps happening. Yeah. The Trojan rabbit fails. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think in that scene, the flying animals, I think, was when I finally lost it. Like, the insults were great. Like, the insults were great and all, but then suddenly this cow just flies over the. That's absurd. That was it.
which is an actual part of history, but normally the other way. People throwing diseased animals into a fort or castle.
Right.
Everybody's sick. Yeah. Biological warfare.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. We got to move on. We can talk about the entire film. That's not why we're here. This is a drive-in.
We need to get on with it.
Get on with it.
Get on with it.
So, on a more serious, yes, we're going to take this film seriously from here on out. No laughing. No, none of that. None of that. What are our thoughts on how religion is portrayed in this film?
I mean, other than the Grail, and God showing up in 70s Art Deco. There's not actually a lot of religion present, other than the underlying
the theme of the film. But
yeah, I think it's handled like very well in a very funny manner. It's not like they make fun of religion itself. They make fun of how religion is used and the funny things that come if you actually study the religion, and God being upset at how the Psalms are miserable. And like, if you read some of the Psalms, you kind of go, oh, I'm in the depths of despair. And then it leaves you there. And that's like the end of the Psalm. It's like, okay, not really feeling good after this one. Thanks for putting that in there, God.
I think it kind of plays with a lot of the, I guess, before trope culture, the tropes of the time, like the counting scene where it's like, uses the language of like the King James version of the Bible.
Yes,
like, you can,
the holy hand grenade.
You must not count to 2 unless thou proceedest to 3. This is so funny.
5 is right out. No, my favorite line, it is kind of is what where the commentaries on religion a little bit in the funny way, is the end of it, where it's once the number 3, being the third number, be reached, then lobbest thou thy holy hand grenade of Antioch towards thy foe, who, being naughty in my sight, shall snuff it. And so the other verse too, that O Lord, bless this thy hand grenade, that with it thou mayst blow thine enemies to tiny bits in thy mercy.
It's just playing with the language. It's really funny.
Yeah.
It's the in thy mercy always gets me every single time, because it's like, what comes before? Then you end with that. It's like someone has some opinions on scripture.
Exactly. It's a way to poke fun at the Bible, but being funny and kind of respectful at the same time. Even if the author doesn't agree with it at all, it's still a funny way to poke fun at it, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when they did the Life of Brian movie, which they consider to be more magnum opus than this. Well, actually, Meaning of Life even more than that. It's like when they make fun of Jesus, they're not making fun of Jesus. They're making fun of people misinterpreting what he said. That's why we get the "Blessed are the cheesemakers" scene, instead of the peacemakers. It's like, because when they went in the writing room, every time Jesus showed up in a scene, they just felt bad about trying to portray him negatively. So they had an immense respect in their own way, because there's some people who wouldn't do that. So I applaud them for that. Like, they're having fun with it, but they're not being like, if you believe this, you're an idiot. All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to add before we head to our wrap up?
I could talk about this all day. Don't tempt me.
Yeah.
If this wasn't a drive-in episode, I'd say let's keep going. But I can already hear Editor Joshua getting very angry as he's typing along his message. Like, you went over the time limit. I'm going to kill you. Is how he
rumbling under his breath.
All right. So in keeping with this, one of the questions we've been asking is, what snack or beverage invented in the decade of this film would you like to take to the drive-in with you?
Do we know any snacks that were invented in this era?
Yeah, so I had to look it up. So Laffy Taffy came out in 1971.
Okay.
Reese's Pieces came out in the 70s. What was one of the other ones?
Well, my answer,
they all left my head. I don't know. I don't remember.
That's fair. Mine was going to be Ring Pops, because I looked at some of the other ones. Like, they're fine. I think Ring Pops were invented in 79, and like, you could make those suckers last. I mean, quite literally. How about you, John?
You still got one from 2 years ago. I guess I'll go with Reese's Pieces.
Okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood the assignment, and I thought you meant like what medieval times snack. I was like, I have no idea.
Okay, the question, everyone: what snack or beverage invented in the decade of this film, which would have been 982 AD or 72 AD? I think it's the very beginning. So yeah, what invented in 982 AD, John, would you bring to the drive-in? Mutton, turkey legs.
I brought some fried pig.
We got a roast suckling pig for everyone in their cars. We can share. We're an narco-centric commune here, giving food to the good people watching this film. Knowing you, I can see how you misinterpreted that. Go ahead.
So what did you come up with?
I didn't have anything. That's why I was.
What snacks were invented in 982 AD? What do you mean? That's for leisure time, and people didn't have leisure back in the day as much as now. What do you mean about industrial revolution
Did
and
they
production?
have fun back in the day?
Gosh. Okay. Before we even go any further, guys, I rate and review this film. What do you say? Not everyone at once.
Oh, is that a question directed at me or the audience?
You, the good people I'm talking to on this podcast, this very well produced podcast where we're always on task.
This film is always going to be a 10 out of 10. It's a classic. I mean, even in the parts where the jokes don't land, it's still, one of those things where you're expecting it to happen, and you sit through it and get to the ones that you really like. It's just a series of sketch comedies where you have your favorite parts and bits, but it always will be practically perfect.
Yeah, I think once you understand what it is,
A big ask.
and isn't, it's a 10. It does exactly what it's supposed to.
I couldn't agree more with you guys. This is one of my second favorite film of all time after Return of the Jedi. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. I can watch this over and over again with fresh eyes, with older eyes. Just introducing people to this. My brother introduced this to my sister-in-law the other day. She was not happy.
The memes.
It's not her type of film.
You guys are lame.
yeah.
So bacon and coffee were considered dessert delicacies.
Ooh.
I just looked it up.
Okay,
So,
you're gonna
there
fry
you go.
yourself some
I'll
bacon.
take care of that.
Pour yourself
Bacon
a
and
cup of
coffee.
Joe.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right, guys. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for sticking with us as maybe we stayed on task. I don't know. I'm just here, man. I just work.
What?
At this place.
I don't know. I work here.
Yeah, as you're saying, just get on with it. So, by the way,
Get on with it.
I forgot to say this earlier. You want to know why they ended the film the way they did, with a bunch of cops coming in to arrest Arthur for the murder of a famous historian?
They didn't have an audience. They didn't have the budget to do a big battle scene, right?
True, but it's also because it's a cop out.
Oh my god! It's so funny.
I've been holding on to that one for a little bit. Okay. Why do people listen to this?
This is classic dad joke material. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
This is going to get the most listens,
I know,
the most downloads, the most likes and shares.
Oh my gosh. Let me try again. Thank you all for listening to this episode. We're very grateful to you for putting up with our insanity, inanity, and everything in between. You guys are the best. So please get a chance, leave a 5-star review in your podcasting platform of choice. As well, head over to our YouTube page, subscribe there, listen to the videos we have, like, subscribe. Also, because you got us over 100 subscribers on YouTube, we're doing a special Q&A sometime later. And we want your questions. So send them at systematicgeekology@gmail.com or on our Facebook page, Priests of the Geeks, or go to our Discord or at the episode discussions page. You can put down like, hey, what episode is your favorite? Or what would you like to redo again? Or something like that. Send it our way. We'll compile it. We'll put as many hosts as possible on that episode to answer your questions. Shout out as well some patrons. Thank you, Ethan Overcash, Austin Nance, and Amber Riley. You guys are the best. But remember, we are all a chosen people. A geekdom of priests.